The Kardashian Jenner girls are famous for seemingly doing nothing. At least that is the perception of many that do not know the real story of their family. The reality is they have captured the attention of a generation, as we watch them live their lives over television and social media. Each of the family members has businesses ranging from fashion to alcohol to media, with historic branding deals to go along with them. It's hard to deny the influence they've had over the 2000s, from social media dominance to empire building, to influencing a fashion generation. But the fact is, none of this would have happened without the original momager, Kris Jenner. Hi, and welcome to our channel, where we look at famous figures and entrepreneurs, and peel back the curtain of their achievements so we can learn the secrets of their success. If you like what you see, make sure to smash the like button, and subscribe to our channel for more inspiring videos about the lives, successes, and lessons learned from some of the most famous business figures of our time. Kris Jenner has said in the past that her main goal was to take her family's 15 minutes and turn them into 30. By now, she has exceeded that goal by far, with one daughter, Kylie, already a billionaire by the age of 21. It's almost impossible to get away from the famous sisters whose names all start with K. And in this video, we will look at how Kris Jenner went from divorced mother of 4 with no money, cut off from her previous social status, and became one of the most preeminent figures of the past 2 decades. As part of our journey into Kris Jenner's life, we will study how she did it, how she overcame obstacles, and how her influence is now seen in the success of her children and has impacted countless people around the world. Kris Jenner was born in San Diego, California as Kristen Mary Houghton to Mary Jo and Bob Houghton. Her parents divorced when she was 7, and her mum soon remarried to businessman Harry Shannon. After a few months of moving the family to Oxnard, California, Kris's stepfather's business partner absconded with the company's money, leaving the family with nothing, and forcing them to return to San Diego and start from square one. Kris observed her mother and stepfather restart and pivot their lives in order to provide for their children, something that would come back to her in a very real way later in life. Her mother and stepfather started a children's clothing store called Shannon & Company, where they employed their oldest daughter, Kris. At 17, Kris met lawyer and businessman Robert Kardashian, and 5 years later, the two married. And that's where our story might have ended. The wife to a successful businessman in LA, Kris could have stayed a socialite, a real housewife long before the phrase became synonymous with another reality TV franchise. Her days were filled with friends, tennis, and shopping with 4 children in tow, and a husband who gave her everything she wanted. But Kris was restless. She wanted more out of life. She would later mention that these formative years were crucial to her business philosophy later in life. In a talk at Goldman Sachs Builders and Innovators Summit, Kris talks about how she was learning a business via osmosis, accompanying her husband to dinners with executives, producers, and CEOs. "I learned from the best without even realizing what was happening," she said. From these old-school businessmen, she learned 2 very important life lessons. First, that you never dismiss an opportunity. And second, that nothing is promised. This influenced her business philosophy as a momager, to explore every single opportunity and see if it was a fit. Unfortunately, Kris's marriage ended abruptly in an ugly custody battle against her now ex-husband, Robert Kardashian. He cut her off completely, both financially and socially, at the end of their marriage. Once again, Kris was at the point in her life where she had to rebuild from nothing. It's hard enough to do it once, but doing it twice would break many people. But from watching her parents and her family, Kris learned to keep fighting, to keep going, to keep pivoting. A few months before her divorce was finalized, she met a handsome former athlete, and after a whirlwind romance, her ex-husband agreed to finalize the divorce early so that Kris could remarry. The athlete was former decathlon gold medal champion Bruce Jenner, now known as Caitlyn Jenner. Finding love again may have been exciting, but Kris also knew it wouldn't put food on the table. This time she knew it was up to her. Why? Because Jenner only had $200 in the bank, and she needed to secure a future for her children. She got to work and managed to not only rebuild her social life, but Kris got to work as Jenner's new manager. Bruce had a fledgling business as a motivational speaker, based mostly on his gold medal decathlete history at the 1976 Olympic Games in Montreal. Kris talks about this time as being extremely difficult, with no money to raise a family. In discussing the status of Jenner's business, she said, "He didn't have a business card. He didn't have a bio. He didn't have press. Nothing. I had a cell phone the size of a brick and a typewriter and an old-fashioned Rolodex thing on a spindle. I remember thinking, this is what we've got to do. We're going to get every fabulous picture of Bruce Jenner that we can. We're going to do a photo shoot. I had a friend take photos, and I had another woman I know make a sizzle reel that we could use as an intro to his speech. It truly was a mix of blood, sweat, and tears, as Kris would later say to the New York Times. She was the one putting together press kits and contacting event organizers. She saw the talent in her husband, and she was determined to sell that expertise. She talks a lot about the need to pivot when necessary and not to take no for an answer. Kris Jenner often says, if someone says no, you're talking to the wrong person, a philosophy that she has passed down to her daughters. She also used what little resources she had and maximized them. For example, the couple made a workout video together at very little cost and sold it directly to consumers via infomercial, called Super Fit with Bruce and Kris Jenner, in which she had the former decathlete train her on their own treadmill at home. What better way to market an at-home workout video to the masses than to use someone who looks just like them rather than already fit workout models? Kris was laying the groundwork for the aspirational marketing plan that would make her daughters billionaires in the 2000s. She also marketed Jenner's key speech, Finding the Champion Within, to a wider audience, finding new ways to make her husband more relatable. Eventually, it all started to pay off. Companies like Visa and Coca-Cola started to return her calls, and the Kris's momager era had begun. By the time the early 2000s rolled around, Kris and her ex-husband Robert were on good terms, and she was living a comfortable life with her huge blended family. 4 children from her first marriage, 2 from her second, and plenty of stepchildren to add to the mix. But tragedy would strike her family again, this time in the form of Robert losing his battle with esophageal cancer. When he died in 2003, Kris pivoted once again to find a way for her kids to be secure in their futures. She mentioned in the same Goldman Sachs interview that her goal was always to find a path for her children, some way where they could be happy, secure, and successful. In 2004, she went back to how it all began in the momager business, opening up a children's clothing store with her eldest daughter, Courtney, called Smooch. Work with what you know and make it work for you, right? Ultimately, it failed, but valuable lessons were learned, and like all ventures Kris and her kids start, many more were started and tried while others were being built. One of the family's biggest philosophies is to keep trying new things. In 2006, Kim had already gained some fame as Paris Hilton's stylist best friend, appearing in a couple of episodes of The Simple Life. She had also opened a luxury clothing store with her sisters Courtney and Chloe, called Dash. Courtney also appeared in a Simple Life-inspired reality show called Filthy Rich Cattle Drive. Kris was managing her daughters and starting to see that the big family had some bigger personalities within it. Kris approached Ryan Seacrest, who at the time was known for hosting American Idol. But Kris knew that he had also just inked a deal with E! To executive produce his own shows on the network. Kris called him up for a meeting to pitch an idea for a show, Her Family. There's the little girls, and there's the older girls, and then there's my son. Everybody thinks that they could create a bunch of drama in their lives, but it's something that I felt I didn't even have to think about. It would be natural, she said in 2015 to the New York Times. In a way, a template for a show about a big blended family had already had an extremely successful run. Do you remember a little show called The Brady Bunch? The Kardashian-Jenner clan were the modern, Hollywood glam version of the sitcom, with a huge mansion in Calabasas standing in for the modest split level in suburban LA. She invited Seacrest to shoot a test reel at a family barbecue and see how the drama would play out. He sent a producer who gave Seacrest a call later that night to say the show would be a hit. Kris did what she does best, used the resources under her own roof, and spun their lives into financial success. Kris Jenner's philosophy in business is to follow every opportunity that comes her way, and then decide whether or not it's the right fit. It was a way of doing business that she learned from her ex-husband, Robert Kardashian, in the 80s. She created her own business school via her social connections and passed along that know-how in her career managing her kids. It was about their dreams, yes, but it was also about paying the bills. Every year she sat down with each of her kids, individually, and asked what their goals were for the year, what were their dreams, how far were they willing to go. That gave momager Kris the outline for figuring out what was realistic and finding opportunities for the kids. As their manager, as well as managing her partner's career, she would yield a 10% cut of all their business ventures. To this day, her daughters are still managed by their mother. Any branding deal goes through Kris, who is also an executive producer on that little reality show called Keeping Up with the Kardashians. But Kris does know when to step back. In an interview with Lenny Letter, she talks about developing Kim's first fragrance. She knew the shape of the bottle, but she was stuck on the color. It was going to be a black bottle with a pink trim, and it was either dark pink or light pink. One day she just puts it up on Twitter and says, "Hey guys, what do you think? This color or that color?" I said, "You're a genius." She got such an overwhelming reaction in such a positive way. I thought it was so remarkable. That's really the moment that I learned boundaries about when to jump in with my kids and our businesses. Because we work together on all the things we do, but there's a moment when mum has to step back. Manager has to be there, but let my daughter client do her thing and not be too overbearing. Since Kris didn't go to business school, her tactics often seem improvised, but it's really about trying, learning from success or failure, and trying again using what you learned. Kris learned from her daughter's use of social media, and she teaches her daughters how to turn that into lucrative business deals. And her children have taken her business approach in trying new ventures because you just don't know. And while they've had failures like Arthur George, Sock Company, a MasterCard debit card dubbed Kardashian Card, a failed novel called Rebel City of Indra, a Fox TV show called Kris, and a diet pill called Quick Trim, failed stores, and more, these have all led and contributed to billion-dollar brands like Kylie Cosmetics, KKW Beauty, and Skims, plus many more million-dollar brands such as Tequila 818 and Good American. Kris Jenner says that her relationships with people are what has driven her success and is what she instills in her children. Ultimately, she says, your relationship with the people you work with is more important than the contracts you sign. Her resilience is shown by how many times she has had to start from square one and was determined to succeed time and again. And while you may or may not like them, there's no denying that the Kardashian Jenners dominate the media, have built a business empire, and have influenced an entire generation. All thanks to the original momager, Kris Jenner. If you liked our video, once again, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. And while you're at it, make sure you hit the alarm bell to be notified of upcoming videos. Has Kris Jenner's rise to media dominance surprised you? Let us know in the comments below. Until next time, keep pivoting and keep trying new things. You never know what will fit.